Welcome. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana, and this is a special episode of a series that I started a very long time ago. And it's called the Card Comparison Series. I believe it is still linked on the front page of my channel. And this series started before I began channel membership. And so the first part of the series is available, and then there's a good chunk of the series that is a members only feature. But I decided today to revisit this series because I had a question from a student, and I thought that I would try to expand and clarify and perhaps bring some different insight, though my views on these cards have not changed drastically since creating the last video. So the series is linked below in the description box, as well as the video that this is a follow-up of. So what we're going to do today is start by just discussing the Temperance and the Star cards, and then we're going to bring in lots and lots of associated cards. So you might want to get a notebook or get the Temperance and Star cards out, Temperance and Star cards out from a couple of different decks. And then please feel free to join in the conversation. This is not meant to be a lecture. This is me sharing. What is this? This is me sharing different viewpoints, different ways that I work with the many, many layers of the tarot. And there are many, many. And what I want to say is that in any given reading, I will not be working with all of these layers. It depends on the surrounding cards in the reading, the intention, the date, the season, so many things. Welcome to Nancy and Tarot Stash. Hello. Yeah, so it's lovely to have you here. And those of you that are watching in the background, please feel free to hop in at any point. So let's begin. We're looking at the 14th and the 17th Arcana, and both of these cards are well on the way, on the journey. The 14th card concludes the second septenary. So if you are familiar with this lens, the major arcana is divided into 3 groups of 7, referred to as a septenary. And the Temperance card, being the 14th card, is the winding up of a group of cards to me that represent a time of connection with community, service, reaching out into the world, whereas the first septenary is more self-centered. The third septenary, the Star, is the second card, the third card there. And this is more of our cosmic connection to spirit. It has a really interesting frequency. It's almost as if through these 3 septenaries, we kind of just continue to level up in the way that we connect with others and be in the world. Okay. The Temperance card is connected to the astrological sign of Sagittarius. This is a fire sign. It is a mutable fire sign. And whether or not you whether you are an astrologer or you read with astrological associations, I think this is an important layer to be aware of. The Star is connected with Aquarius. Aquarius is fixed air. And so we're looking at the astrological elemental association being both masculine, right? So fire and air are masculine suits. They are active suits. This Sagittarius, right? So fire and Aquarius, air. And so, yeah, so those are those pretty basic things. Now, I thought what I would start with, where the confusion came in. Hello, Sharon, welcome. Where the confusion came in, and I want to read to you the questions. So this was from Elizabeth. You were speaking about the King of Swords being connected to the star, and then on to the Kings, 14 to Temperance, and connection to the sevens. And so there was a lot of connections that I built in the previous video. And so I would like to take my time and go through step by step, building some of those references. And I think it can help in understanding different weavings of the web. When I read tarot, it's almost as if the cards on the table take on a life of their own. And I have tried over the years to create a visual. And I know there are some amazing tarot books out there that give you a visual, a wheel sometimes of the majors and the minors and how they all fit together in a beautiful mandala. But what I see in the tarot is something that is a little more fluid. And when I am looking at temperance and I'm in a reading, I am mindful of the four kings. The four kings are the 14th card in the minor suit, in each minor suit. And so this aspect of the web, if you will, is definitely in my it's in my awareness as I'm doing an initial scan of any given reading. So 14 and 14, I do work with the cards numerologically, and I'm looking for patterns. So if I were to draw circles, webs, different shapes, geometrical shapes, I would draw lines between all of the kings and the temperance card. They're all number 14. So there is something that is going on there. Now, I mentioned that temperance is connected to the element of fire. It's connected to Sagittarius. In the system of the Golden Dawn, the kings are also connected to the element of fire. And so that brings in another connection, fire and fire, 14 and 14. So what's that going to tell me in a reading? It's going to tell me that there is synchronicities. There are things that are working together well. Perhaps, and we can talk to the individual, how the individual meanings of the cards are connected, but there's something that's going on in the background. And so that's how and why I would see that particular connection. Now, the 17th arcanum, the star, and of course, we can also look at these in reduction, and that's a whole other conversation. So numerologically, temperance 14 can also 1 + 4 can reduce to a 5, and we can look for connections of 5 as well too. But that's going to take me down way too many rabbit holes tonight. And so, yes, that is also a possibility, and I may see in a reading an abundance of 5s, and then I'm going to go down that particular rabbit hole. But that's not where we're going tonight, okay? The star, as I was saying, is air. It's also a masculine active energy as far as the element of air is connected. Earth and water are the receptive feminine elements. And when you look at this card, you wouldn't think of masculine energy at all. There's a naked woman returning water back into a cauldron, back into the water of the earth. But that is what, tarotically speaking, the element of air, one quality of the element of air. 17. So there is no 17th card in the minor suits. There's the maximum you can go to is 14. So when I'm looking for relationships with the star card, yes, I might reduce it to 8, but I'm also going to pay attention to sevens. And there may be sevens in the minor arcana. There may be a connection to the chariot card, that particular element as well too. So part of my process is looking for repetitive numbers. And if I were to see the chariot or any of the sevens show up in a reading, then that is definitely going to draw my attention. Now, the initial conversation in this card comparison was, well, what's the difference between, or let's contrast and compare these two cards. Okay. And I had the field tarot out today, and I want to also speak to these cards because I think these cards speak volumes. This is a US Games deck called the Field Tarot. Hey, Jamie, welcome. Thanks for joining. Temperance. And remember, this is as I see it. This is not this is an interpretation. Temperance to me is a very active energy. Remember that we're talking about mutable Sagittarius. There is a flow, there is a flexibility, there is a gift of adaptability in the mutable signs. And if we are adaptable, flexible, mutable, the potential for healing and growth and change is a lot easier. It really is a beautiful quality of all of the mutable signs to have that in a higher frequency, the ability to shift and to change. And when I look at the flow of the liquid between the two cups in Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork, I think about that. I think about a willingness to shift and to change and to flow and to heal. And to me, this is the card of the healer. This is the card of active healing, perhaps choosing different foods, choosing different. This might be the time in your life where you realize you can no longer stay in this occupation. It is quite literally killing you, and you make that shift. You rebalance your life, and you choose your health, and you shift gears. So temperance has a lot of different associations. And if you look at the field tarot over on the left, it almost looks as if we are looking at scales. We have a lot of the elements represented here in equal proportions as well too. We see air, what looks like blue of the ocean. This is still probably air, but I'm seeing earth. I'm seeing 3 elements here in equal proportion in the horizon as well too, which is kind of clever. When I'm thinking of the Druid Craft Tarot, there are some pagan tarots where you actually see a witch or a wizard, someone who is in their kitchen at their cauldron, creating a spell, creating a blend, creating a tea. And I think about teas when I see the 14th card, choosing to mix and to blend herbs. And I love those shops where you go into and they ask you how you're feeling, and you get a tea that's created just for how you're feeling in that particular moment. It's such a gift. I feel very blessed to have a daughter that studied Chinese medicine as well too, and I learned so much from her. So in contrast, so we're contrasting these 2 cards. You see that the angel has 1 foot on the land, 1 foot in the earth. We see that sort of represented in the field as well too. The star card, we also see 1 knee on the earth, 1 foot in the water. And rather than shifting the energy from one cup to the other, this person is returning the water back to the earth. It's almost as if they have, can I say they've completed something? They're finished with it. They are giving back. It feels to me that they are, yeah, and it's hard to find language around this, but there's that sense of, and if you think about what is before, so the Tower card that is before this, there's a release of sorts. One of my favorite keywords for this card is purification. I feel a sense of, there's a real solo energy to this card. There's a lot of spaciousness in this card. And there's many decks that do this really well. And the fact that we are surrounded, the cosmos is there in full view. We see the sun, the biggest star in the sky. We see 7 other stars around, and some people say that these stars represent the chakras, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I think in the Crowley deck, perhaps some of the older Tarot de Marseille's, rather than an 8-pointed sun, we do see a 7-pointed star. And so there's more connection to the number 7 in different artwork in different decks. So what's going on here? If this is healing and this is purification, what's happening here? I feel this is Temperance is it's a busier card. We're doing something about our wellness. Whereas in Temperance, we are surrendering and, kind of allowing life, allowing healing, allowing God, allowing spirit to work through us, to work with us. And I think surrender is a beautiful word for this card. It feels almost as if we are, and if you look at the field tarot, she's walking into the cauldron. And I use this word. I know that sometimes in mountain landscapes, there are these amazing pools that have been created, and they create these little lakes up in the mountains. And to me, that's what they feel like when you go into a clear, clean, cold mountain lake. It feels like that. It feels like going into a cauldron of healing. And it's just so beautiful. Yes, and Sharon's comment, surrender and grace, and that was an important word today that came through for Sharon. Grace is truly allowing. There's another expression, let go and let God, and to me, the Star card is that. It's a card of letting go and letting God. Now, how in the world, with such a high frequency, can we connect this to the 7s? The 7s in Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork are quite challenging, right? They're not easy cards. There is a sense of struggle. And when we look at these cards, there's a lot of ego that is involved, and definitely not surrender. However, if the 7s, connecting 7s, because this was part of my conversation, show up in a reading, I am reminded of the Euclidean geometry, the building of the number 7, the 3, the triangle upon the square. I am reminded of the fact that what is behind the chariot was a container, a walled city. The charioteer has left the walled city. They're embarking on some sort of a journey. And we have another kind of magical connection here in that this is the completion of the 2nd septenary. This is the completion of the 1st septenary. And there is, though not, different decks do this I don't want to say better, differently. The whole issue with the whole conversation of the reins and letting go of the reins. Good evening to Vange and Tamian. Thanks for joining in the conversation. The release of the reins, not needing to hold the reins, is a sense of allowing. It's an aspect of letting go, right? It is a surrender of sorts. And so when I see a chariot card that has horses reined or other beasts reined, to me that takes away from the beauty of the connection between these two cards that have an aspect of allowing and surrendering to grace within them. Okay, so this feels more like doing. This to me feels more like allowing. If that makes sense. Okay. Now I want to go back to Elizabeth's question because I know I haven't answered all of her question. And if you have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat. You were speaking about the King of Swords being connected to the star. I have no idea what I said. I should have written down exactly what I said. And to tell you the truth, I have no idea what I said, but whatever I said, I meant it. And I was on a flow of sorts. So the King of Swords. All right, so let's go here. So we're looking at fixed. So this is fixed air, Aquarius. And this is your air of fire. Oh, I know what I was talking about. Okay, so this is going to take us down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but bear with me, okay? Because I have lots of cards prepared here. So Aquarius is fixed. And in the Golden Dawn system, the court cards that are connected with fixed astrological symbols are the kings. So there is an astrological correspondence here. And I don't have all the sword cards out either, the minors out. So if we're talking about looking for signs of Aquarius season, then if we want confirmation, if somebody has asked a when question or somebody's doing a birthday reading and they're looking for, Dharma kind of stuff and my own path, then we're looking for all the Aquarius information. Then we have King of Swords, and the fixed symbols are 5, 6, and 7. So we would be looking, the fixed signs are 5, 6, and 7 minors. So we would be looking for correspondences with 5, 6, and 7 of swords. That must be what I was saying. Okay. Now, Sagittarius, on the other hand, is mutable. And I will be expanding on this in a second. The mutable signs are connected with the knights. The knights take us from the end of one season to the beginning of another season. The knights are about transition. Okay, so this is another association. The knights are connected to the 8, 9, and 10. So if you are looking for signs of Sagittarius, you would be looking for 8, 9, and 10 of fire. And those connections will bring in something like that. Okay, so Elizabeth, that's probably where I was going with that energy. Now this rabbit hole goes on and on and on. And I absolutely love the tarot, and I love weaving the tarot, because when I say that, I'm going, ooh, here's a knight. And then I'm going, well, does that not connect us to flow and energy. And so in some weird and random way, are the nights in general, mutable energy of the nights, not connected to the flow of the chariot or the moving forth of the chariot? Or are these just cards of movement? The possibilities of connecting cards is limitless. There's no restriction. There's no end to the stories we can weave, to the connections we can weave. And it's about having an open mind. It's about having, when I do a reading, I like to step back and have a look at the spread, kind of imagine, rising above the table and looking at the whole thing. When we get stuck in the little tiny details, we don't see the big picture, right? We don't see all of these connections. And I find generally what happens is that when you are learning to read, or you are in a high pressure situation, your first psychic fair, your first few times that you're reading for money, it's really difficult to stay in the big picture. We get into that trap of defining individual cards. And so one of the things I would advise newer readers who are shifting the kind of places that they are reading, or how they're, maybe you're opening a tarot business, is don't limit yourself by time, and know that it's also okay to pause. Today, when I was doing live readings, I actually got up from the table and I went and rung my I hit my singing bowl over there. Sometimes we need to take a breath. We need space. We need to slow down. Okay? The stories we weave are so interesting, especially when we remember to occasionally take a moment. And I feel that there is pressure. There is unnecessary pressure we put on ourselves to get it right away. Okay? And so if you take a reading step by step, layer by layer, then you can start to find repeating patterns. Or I feel like I'm teaching Lenormand, because this is exactly what you do in Lenormand. You read the cards across, then you read them down, you read them diagonally, right? It's important to build in as many connections as possible. Hello, mosquito. Go away. I just came back from the beach as well too. I had a beautiful swim this afternoon, so my hair is a little wet. All right, so that was, and then Elizabeth, so I'm going back because this was a request by Elizabeth. The star 17 also connected to the sevens, but in my class notes, I had the sevens connected to the chariot and the knights. So I think I've already touched on that. Okay. So in summary, let's just, and if there's something else that you would like me to touch on, please ask, because I've put out other associations here that I haven't even mentioned. You may or may not be aware of, or even, want to talk to astrological associations. So without even understanding to any degree what the qualities of Sagittarius are. There are timing issues that might be relative, or seasonal issues that may be relative. And remember, if you're reading for someone in the Southern Hemisphere, Sagittarius is a time when things are getting warm, not when they're getting cold. So we need to also have that sort of flexibility when we're looking for seasonal information. And then the star, North America, where I live, it's very cold in Aquarius season. It's the coldest time of year, but other side, right? This could be a very hot time of year. So there may be seasonal associations, there may be birthday associations that are relevant in a reading. Both of these cards have a sense of tranquility or working towards tranquility, peace, and healing. But for me, the biggest difference, and Gerald, he said he liked my language, was that temperance feels more active. I think temperance is a realization that we are responsible. We are responsible for our wellness. And if you break down responsibility and understand the word respond, so how we respond to various triggers, various things in our life to take charge of our wellness. And so that's why I call this the healer card. I believe this is also Archangel Raphael. So this is the card of healing. It is the card of the healer. It is the card of our active participation in healing. Okay. As opposed to the star, which is a little further on along in the journey. And this is deepening our experience in the third septenary, where we're closer to spirit. We're closer to God. Ego is not taking hold as frequently. Ego is not restricting us in the way it is earlier on in the Fool's journey. And so surrender becomes possible. And there is a true sense of letting go. And there's a lot of spaciousness here, which we definitely need as sort of a recovery after our tower experience. Okay. Then we have numerological associations, right? So there's astrological associations, numerological associations, and there may very well be symbols and signs that you want to connect. So for example, when I'm weaving, so here we have the yellow irises. You might have a temperance card that has, I don't know, just any particular flower. And you notice that in your reading, you have 3 or 4 cards that all have yellow irises or, I don't know, purple azaleas. And so I look to that. I pay attention to the little details in the artwork that are repeating, or perhaps in your reading, all of the cards are day or all of the cards are night. So the layers are speaking to one another and helping to hone in a message. And this goes into, well, people ask, how does tarot work? I believe the tarot is, as we're shuffling and contemplating a question, there is a greater force that is part of universal energy. And somehow through this design, certain cards land on the table because we need to see them. They are a mirror. They are a mirror for us to learn and to reflect upon. And sometimes we miss it. Sometimes we miss it, and that is okay too. We may not be ready. So I hope that clarifies the questions that arose from the previous video, looking at the same cards. And I encourage you to go back to the series, which is linked below. And if there are any other cards you would like me to compare, I'm happy to carry on this series from time to time. Okay. Yeah. So if you're struggling, and if you have a question, make sure you go back to the playlist and check the playlist. Watch the comparisons that I've already done before you ask me to do another video, because I did a lot. I think this one is number 37. So there's 36 other videos comparing cards. Okay. Gerald says, yes, symbols connect across cards. Helps with weaving the story. And I likely will do, you're welcome, Sharon. I likely will do a response to Green-Eyed Tarot. Green-Eyed Tarot is a small channel, and she did a video beginning of August called Narrating the Tarot. Narrating the Tarot. And I think this is very much in alignment with how I read as well too. So I might touch on that coming up on one of my Fridays, but I love this work. So I hope this brought a little bit of clarity or a different perspective into what you might see in these cards. So have a beautiful rest of your evening, and thank you for your comments, and I'll see you all very soon. Namaste.